Welcome to Speakeasy Spirits. Today we're going to take a look at a cocktail recipe that's over 100 years old. We're going to use the same ingredients in different forms, a syrup, a jam, and fresh fruit, and see what difference that makes. Let's make the Clover Club. In the late 1890s, a group of journalists in Philadelphia formed a club called the Clover Club. By 1904, they were meeting in a local hotel where this cocktail is thought to have originated. There are actually two cocktails, the Clover Club and the Clover Leaf, that are nearly identical. In the 1930 Savoy Cocktail Book, Harry Craddock says that the only difference between the two cocktails is the garnish, where the Clover Leaf uses a mint leaf as a garnish, and the Clover Club uses a raspberry. Other sources say that one recipe used grenadine while the other used raspberry syrup. If you go back far enough, there's a lot of confusion and varying recipes for these two cocktails. But we're going to go back to 1911 with one of the earliest published recipes for the Clover Club that uses raspberry syrup. The Clover Club is an egg white cocktail, so we're going to start with half an ounce of egg white. I'm using some frozen egg white, half an ounce of raspberry syrup, 1/3 of an ounce of lime juice, and 1/3 of an ounce of lemon juice. To that we're going to add half an ounce of dry vermouth. I'm using this Dolan vermouth. And 1.5 ounces of gin. I'm using Aviation American style gin. This is a contemporary gin, and it's most likely the original recipe would have been using a London dry gin. Now we're going to do a dry shake. That is shaking it without ice. This is pretty common with egg white cocktails. It helps create the foam that's going to be sitting at the top of the drink. Give that a good shake. Then add your ice. And we'll shake it again to chill. Now because this raspberry syrup does have the seeds in it, we're going to double strain this into a coupe glass. And the fine mesh strainer will catch all the seeds and any bits of fruit that are left in there. And we will garnish that with one raspberry sitting in the foam. And there you have the original Clover Club. The raspberry comes through, but not too sweet. That tartness of the lime helps balance out the raspberry syrup. The herbal notes of the gin come through in the background. The foam gives it a nice texture. You get a nice tart raspberry flavor. That's helped out by the addition of the lime juice. The next thing you get is the herbal notes of the gin and the vermouth. It's a little bit floral, a little bit fruity, very well balanced. It's an excellent cocktail. You can make your own raspberry syrup by using 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. Heat that over the stove. Mash in a couple of handfuls of raspberry and let that simmer at a very low heat. You don't want to cook the raspberries, but you do want to pull those juices out into the syrup. But what if you don't feel like making a homemade syrup? Julie Rayner, bartender at the Clover Club in New York, used a raspberry jam in her version of the cocktail. So let's try that. So let's start with the jam. Now depending on how sweet your raspberry jam is, you're going to want to use 1 to 2 bar spoons of the jam. Those are going to be heaping bar spoons. This one's not so sweet, so I'm going to use a full 2. Add that straight into your tin. Now we need 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. This recipe does not use any lime juice. And now stir to dissolve the raspberry jam. If you watched my whiskey sour video, you'll know I like using frozen egg whites. So here is what a cube of frozen egg whites looks like. I just measured that out into 1/2 ounce pours into an ice cube tray, froze them overnight, and those will stay good for up to a year. If you don't have time to let your egg white defrost, take your muddler and just break up the egg white a bit. And now it'll integrate into the cocktail when we shake it. Now we need 1/2 ounce of vermouth, and 1.5 ounces of gin. Now for this one, we're going to do a slightly different shake. We're going to do a reverse dry shake. So we'll start with our ice. And give that a good shake. Now you want to use your fine mesh strainer and your Hawthorne strainer to catch the ice. And pour it from one tin into the other. Make sure to get it all. Now discard your ice. And now we'll give it a shake without the ice. This will help build up the foam. Since we've already strained this, we're just going to open pour straight into the glass. You can see we built up a really good foam on this one. And let's garnish that with 3 raspberries on a cocktail pick. There you have the Clover Club's version of the Clover Club using a raspberry jam. So already you can see we've got a really nice head of foam on this one. It's still very raspberry, has a nice tartness to it. It's a little less tart than the first one since we've removed the lime juice. You still have the same herbal notes from the gin and vermouth. They're really almost identical except for that level of tartness. So if you quickly want to make a Clover Club and you don't have any raspberry syrup, hit the fridge, see if you have any jam. Now I want to put my own twist on the Clover Club. We're going to replace the aviation gin with this barrel-rested chemist gin. And the vermouth we're going to replace with Coca Americano. This is also an aromatized wine like a vermouth, but it has more herbal notes and a bit more bitterness to it. So let's start with our egg white. Once again, we're going to use a frozen cube. And let's just break that up a bit. Now we're going to add 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. And 5 fresh raspberries. We're going to skip the syrup and the jam and go straight to the fresh fruit. So muddle that in with your egg white and lemon. And for the sweetness, we're going to go with 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. Now the idea here is that most syrups and jams are cooked, and cooking can change the flavor of the fruit. So by using the fresh fruit, we're going to get a brighter, fresh raspberry taste. To that, we're going to add 1/2 ounce of Coca Americano. And 1 3/4 ounce of our barrel-rested gin. Since we've done a dry shake and a reverse dry shake, let's see what happens if we just do one single shake with ice. Since we have fresh fruit in there, we're going to double strain this one right into our martini glass. And here's my version, the Speakeasy Clover Club. Now you can already see it's got a pretty decent head of foam, but not quite as good as the first two. So there definitely is something to the dry shake or the reverse dry shake, but it's still a pretty good head of foam. So this one is the most different from the other two, and it's not because of the Coca Americano. I think it's because of the raspberries. This one just has a brighter, more lively raspberry taste to it than the other two. The raspberry flavor is more fresh, less dessert-like, and more like a real fruit. You get a hint of the woody notes of the barrel-rested gin, and the bitterness of the Coca Americano is a nice accompaniment to the raspberry flavors. I know I'm biased, but once again, I think mine is the superior version. So there you have 3 versions of the Clover Club, basically identical cocktails with a few little variations. I hope this helps lower the barrier to making good craft cocktails at home. If you're missing an ingredient, like the raspberry syrup, there's always an alternative, like the jam or fresh ingredients. I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.